On to other business.
I have some comments. Is that for board staff comments? I just wanted to share with my colleagues that we have a board meeting coming up in February, in the end of February, February 20th. And as a study session, I think it would be a really great idea if we had perhaps a presentation on school finance and school bonds. Also, perhaps the topic of facilities, because one of the requirements of Proposition 13, in order to qualify for state funding under this proposition, all school districts that make application have to have a 5-year facilities plan, and we're working on ours. Yay. So where we are on that and where we are, just kind of an update on where we are on our facilities projects, and also perhaps some information about where we are on our California Healthy Youth Act curriculum, which is nearing completion. I think we have several really meaty topics that we could really benefit from at our next meeting on February 20th. And so if other board members think that these topics are worthy, perhaps chime in with your views or suggestions of other topics that we might take up in our study session.
Well, as far as I know, the presentation for the facilities master plan is not going to be ready in time. So we were going to bring it up for March, and we are going to talk about, or I was going to ask you, the board, to see what your druthers are. If you wanted to do an early study session to start earlier, I know there's some challenges with times, as Mr. Ledesma, respectfully. Or we can just set aside an information item during the board meeting for about 2 hours to talk about the facility master plan.
Are you talking about our February 20th meeting?
Talk about there isn't any update to provide at this time.
Well, I'm suggesting that in the absence of the readiness of the facilities presentation, perhaps we could do something on school finance. I think that's sorely needed. Perhaps we could do something on the progress of the CHIA curriculum.
That's
And
still working through.
I think that also we can always get a facilities update. Where are we on these wonderful projects that we're doing? I think we have lots that we can profit from.
Mr. Moffitt, if I may, I'm hearing you and I'm also hearing Mr. Ortega. Now, Mr. Ortega, you're saying that the facilities master plan will be ready sometime in March. And I think he was suggesting that I don't know if we can combine the two into one meeting and maybe an additional meeting in March, have the facilities master plan and have these other items that you're suggesting.
Well,
I wouldn't mind, because everything that you're suggesting, Mrs. Moffitt, I know you want to do an early session or something like that. I'd like to keep it as a individual meeting, information meeting in and of itself.
on
So if
February 20th?
Well, February 20th or whenever when we decide, but I'd like to have it as a regular information meeting, so that way it's not something that's starting at 3 o'clock and we go until 5 or something.
Yeah,
And then we
I
get
think we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah, but I think we're not on the same page as far as dates.
Basically, what I'm saying is the facility master plan is not ready to be presented this month. The committee on the healthy student, basically the CHIA, is not ready either. Their committee is coming to a conclusion, so the results and recommendations and what have you aren't ready until sometime in March, maybe April. Mr. Harvey presented last board meeting about the facility updates and where we were with each of the high school projects. We've already been updated with all of that. That's why I was suggesting in March that we plan for, but as it's being stated here respectfully, is that we just hold it as a regular board meeting, and the only information item we will do for that night is the facility master plan for March.
Well, respectfully, we at the December meeting approved a calendar of meetings, and there was one on February the 20th. And I remember, because I was sitting near you, you were very eager to get some time to have study sessions, because we, compared with other school boards, we never get a chance to delve into these important issues. And so if you're suggesting that we not have this, we already scheduled this, it's it's on my calendar.
It's a placeholder, and we do that.
Exactly. So we've all held a place for it, so,
It was a placeholder if, in the event, an agenda item were to come up. I mean, this isn't new to you, Ms. Moffett, so.
Exactly.
I just outlined for you, everything that you're asking for is not ready.
well, we could get a presentation on school finance and school bonds, because as a school district, we should understand that. There's clear misunderstanding on the part of this board for that. I get questions all the time, where are we on Villa Park High School? You know, we can get more information on that. We could get an update on where we are on the Chaya, even if it's not ready, we can find out where it is now. We could have an update on our progress on the LCAP. There are so many things that we could, how about the budget? We're talking about our own budget. We could have a study session on budget. To suggest that we don't have anything to study, I thought that's why we were designating, most school districts have 2 meetings a month. This is our chance to have.
I understand, but we're efficient, so we can hold one.
It's not that we're efficient. We leave things undone, Mr. Ortega. We leave things undone. We leave all these kinds of things undone. When I go to things with other school board members, they talk about it. Our last study session, we were talking about teacher evaluation. We were talking about our LCAP. We were talking about parent engagement. We never talk about any of that stuff. We don't give ourselves time. And sometimes we have to go until 1:30 in the morning because we don't give ourselves enough time to meet with the board.
That is not true. That was an anomaly. You know, anyway, I'm not going to get into it. But bottom line is I've already shared with you, staff is not prepared. So if they're not prepared to present something, then
I haven't
we're
heard
just going
that
to sit
from
here and
staff.
look at each other.
I'm sorry,
mean,
I haven't heard that from staff. I've heard that from you, Mr. Ortega. And with your record of attendance at school board meetings, I'm tempted to think that you just don't want to have one.
Hold on, hold
You
on.
know,
Wait,
Mrs.
wait,
Moffett,
wait,
would you just
hold on.
stop for once? Can you just stop yourself from your accusatory attacks constantly? This has been your MO since I've been on this board for 19 years with you.
We were elected.
And you don't stop. You just can't help yourself, can you?
With all
Just
due respect,
stop.
with all due respect, can we take this offline? And I mean, I'm willing to
Yes.
meet whenever anybody wants to meet. The only thing is,
So-
if we're going to have a special meeting, I'd like it to be a special meeting. I don't want to have the come in at 3 o'clock kind of thing. Everything that you are saying, Mrs. Moffett, is highly important. All I'm saying is I think you guys have to have a discussion offline and figure out what a good date or something, because that's all I'm hearing. I mean,
So,
both
I
sides
think-
are.
I take
could-
what you're saying, Mr. Ortega. I understand those 2 items. I think Mrs. Moffett is correct that there are a lot of times where we sort of give short shrift to some really important issues, and I think that's her point. And I do think that we as a board could do better in creating some of those study sessions going forward on some of those issues. Perhaps not February 20th, because perhaps we don't have something prepared to go forward with on that day. But I do understand what Mrs. Moffett is saying, because a lot of times we do have too many things on the agenda, and then we just kind of get rushed at the end because we just want to get done. So I think that's the
So my
point.
suggestion is, if this is what the board would like, is I could have Ms. Clark send out some potential dates for a special meeting, study session, and get some consensus from the board as to what dates are convenient for everybody.
May I
And then we
ask,
could,
what's the matter with February the 20th? We already voted on it.
well, we've been preparing for the facilities master plan. Originally, we had planned to do it on that date, but we don't have all the demographic data. So that's going to be on March the 12th, I believe it is. On the 20th, if the board would like to direct staff to do something, and if that's a date that works for the majority of the board, and there's a topic you can agree on, I mean, we can work on that as well. It's just, I don't have anything right now ready. We'd need to know tonight if that's what you guys wanted to have a meeting on the 20th to do something. At this point, Mr. Ortega's right, I don't have anything prepared for the 20th, but I can take direction tonight from the majority of the board if you wanted to do something, or we could have Ms. Clark go ahead and send out some dates, if the 20th, because I'm not sure if that works for everybody. But I would leave it up to the group here to decide.
I'd like to have the meeting when the staff is actually ready and prepared. Otherwise, it's a meeting for the sake of having a meeting.
Yeah.
And I don't see the point of that. When you're all ready, then send us dates, and we can all look at our calendars.
I mean, we have things
That's
that.
what I said.
Yeah, we have things that are in the works, things that we, we're working on the California Healthy Youth Act. That committee has worked really hard for a year and a half. Obviously, there's things there that need to be presented to the board. So, there's plenty of things we can do in a special study session.
I guess my question is, we've already established that there is a meeting on that night. We voted on it, we all unanimously approved it. Are you saying now that it isn't a meeting unless we also plan it? Because I've never heard that before.
It's a placeholder if we need to. You're not new to this.
Exactly right. Exactly right. We were
So all
we were
you're trying
elected
to
on
do
the
is
same-
grandstand right now. So the bottom line is, February 20th is a placeholder. You just heard from the superintendent, as I alluded in the very beginning, that we don't have anything ready. Or I shouldn't, we, the staff. You keep talking about updates. Well, I don't know how many times we've heard from Mr. Harvey. I don't know how many Friday packets you haven't seen that there's an update every single Friday.
I read them all.
So, again, if people want to come in and look at each other, fine. But, there isn't anything staff can present.
I just want to be clear that we are here to present information to you. So if there is something that the majority of the board would like for us to prepare, we are here to give you information and make sure you have as much information as possible. So,
My
I just
understanding of
I
that
need
February
direction.
20th meeting was that it was going to be on facilities master plan. That was my understanding as well. And then we were advised that that wasn't going to happen. So that was my understanding of what we were doing going forward.
So
I
Ms.
do agree
Moffett-
that you can't throw together a meeting in 2 weeks just to have it. But maybe we should have, as a group, be sort of surveyed and say, what is it that you would like to have an information meeting on? Because there are a lot of issues that I think that we could probably do some study sessions on. I agree, though, February 20th is probably not the day, since you aren't prepared to go forward with that. And we shouldn't have a meeting for the sake of having a meeting, I agree.
Should we, I know we've already, you mentioned a couple of titles that we were talking about subjects, but can we put in, there's been some new things that have been happening. Can we add to some subjects to be added to that study session when we have it? I'm just curious.
Sure, just if you want to
Email it
message.
to you,
No, not me,
or, to
to Ms. Clark.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just like to add that I agree with Mr. Ledesma in that the master facilities plan needs to be its own study session and not built into a regular board meeting, because that will be long. And like others have mentioned, we're not doing topics justice if we're going late into the night or just shortchanging them by cutting them off. So we need to evaluate that.
I agree with you. All I was stating is the December meeting was kind of an anomaly. It normally doesn't go till 1:45 in the morning. So to listen to presentations at 1:45 in the morning, I don't think anybody would be very cognizant of anything,
Yeah.
let alone being safe to drive home at that time. So,
Maybe we can better anticipate.
well,
meetings
again,
are
that
gonna
was
be
an
long.
anomaly agenda item, as we all know. So,
Well, you had 50 speakers, so
yeah.
I'm not sure we could have.
So anyway,
That's also the board's, inability to keep to the 20 minutes per topic.
Yep.
How many hours did we stay on one topic? And it wasn't the first time we heard that topic
It was
before.
over 3.5.
was
Yeah,
about
there
3
you go.
hours.
So,
But I do want to say that myself and the staff are prepared to share a study session information with whatever you decide. The 20th is a placeholder. We're just not ready to do the facilities master plan because of demographic data. So if you don't want to do it on March the 12th, we would need to find an alternative date to do the facilities master plan, because that's very important information. We're midway through the process.
Well, could there be a second meeting in March or something? I mean,
So I can
if
have
we
Ms.
can
Clark
agree on a
send out
date.
some dates and see what works for everyone for a special study session, if you prefer that,
Yes.
to having it on the agenda for March the 12th.
That was the idea for the 20th, but again, they're not prepared to present. So, so that's why I brought it forward to say to the board, would you want to have it included into a regular board meeting? And what I'm hearing right now is the answer is no. You want a completely separate meeting, and it refers back to the 20th, and that's exactly what we were going to do. But you just heard, we're not, or the staff's not prepared to present the information to the board and to the public.
So I think what we're talking about is having a special meeting.
In March. For that, Ms. Clark will send out a couple dates for you and email her back respectfully, each of us. And then we'll call a special meeting in March for the facility. And then possibly also for the other committee, the Chaya, whatever, what is it called?
Curriculum review committee.
I was trying to get the full language. So we'll host another one just for that as
It's the
well.
second meeting in April, or something like that.
Yeah,
And
we'll
that
have to
one,
separate
yeah, that one,
altogether.
obviously, the committee is ready, and the presentation was provided to the curriculum council. So there is information. It's just, we are trying to go out to the community as much as we can. I was at the Community Council PTA and shared some information about the work of the committee. We're trying to get everything out to like our DLAC, our DAC. We want our principals to have PowerPoints. You know, the board asked us to make sure that stakeholders were aware of what we're going to be recommending. So that's going to be happening through the month of March and April. So if you want feedback on how that's gone, I would probably prefer to have it later in April, maybe, to do that. To have the, yeah, so you could hear like what is happening in our sessions when we present to the various parent groups and the committees, and then, you know, what's happening at the school sites as the principals are sharing out what the recommendation is. So we can, that gives us time to bring that back if we do something in April. Or maybe even, we have 2 board meetings in May already because of, we have to do the budget, so maybe April is good. Ms. Corella, I'm looking at you. Okay.
And May.
Okay.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, I'm going to get dates for a March study session on the facilities master plan, and then one also for April. Is that correct? Everybody's good with that?
Yep. Okay. All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you.